By popular demand, we continue to take a look at old favorites. What's good, YouTube? Welcome back to the channel. Today we continue our look at old archetypes made good by rotation. Darkrai VSTAR is next up, and surprisingly it does really well. So if you enjoy the content, be sure to drop a like, subscribe to the channel if you haven't already done so, and comment down below what you want to see brought back from the rotation ruins. And with that said, let's dive right in. So why Darkrai? I personally think the time is now for Darkrai. It has a lot of strengths. It has some of the key numbers I look for. So it's a 2 retreater, so that's nice. It has at least 270 hit points. It's a 2 prizer. If you've been keeping an eye on the competitive scene, you know that Dark is a good or bad weakness if you're playing the deck. Good if you're trying to hit it. Weakness to have. So it has terrific typing. Dark hits Mew, it hits Gardevoir, it hits the Mewtwo V Union. So right now we're hitting a very relevant weakness, and that is one of our best strengths. We're also weak to grass, which is non-existent at the moment, so it's almost like saying you don't have weakness. For now, next set we'll maybe have to revisit. It's an efficient attacker, so for 2 energy is always my gold standard when evaluating a card. 3, it has to be doing something incredible. Energy, it does 30 more for each dark energy attached to all your Pokemon. Don't worry, we're going to show that a little bit later on, or if you're familiar. And of course, the V-Star power, Star Abyss. So during your turn, put up to 2 item cards from your discard pile into your hand. How many other ways in format, aside from coin flips, do we have to put item cards back into our hand? Mew can do it with Silene, but really nothing else comes to mind. So Darkrai has a very unique V-Star power. Shoutouts to Darkrai EX, which this card is rebranded from. It had the Dark Pulse attack for a 20 multiplier. You know, back in the day before power creep, the old EXs. I thought that was pretty cool to see Darkrai relevant, you know, almost 10 years later. Alright, so why now? Psychic type, as I mentioned. There are some very notable attackers. Gardevoir is popping up as one of the most, or the most popular deck in format. Shouts to Tord for coming second and putting a skeleton on the table for everybody to work off of and adjust based on your metagame. So now Gardevoir has been kind of figured out. Now people want to try it. It's a popular Pokemon. It's going to be everywhere. If you notice in the corner, it's also weak to Dark. So Darkrai is hitting that. And of course, the ever-prevalent Mew. This card will not die until it rotates. So Darkrai being able to smack that thing for weakness, very nice. Both have the same hit points, they both have the same weakness, so they get hit by the same damage, which is good. So Psychic's not a problem, we're taking advantage. The crew. So I want to introduce you to the gang. So we have the main star of the show, Dark Pulse 30 multiplier, swarm your board with energy. That's the plan. Galarian Moltres V. So it has the Dire Flame Wings ability, so once during your turn you can take a dark energy from your discard pile and attach it to this Pokemon. If you had multiple in play, you can still only use this ability once per turn. That's why I only put the 1. It's, you know, a win more card. Weezing. So 1 prizer. So this does 20 more damage for each dark energy attached to all of your Pokemon. So it's a 1 prize variant of Darkrai, and it's the Darkrai EX on a stage 1. So I thought that was pretty cool. It was worth including. And then, of course, the backbone of the deck, Galarian Weezing. So Turbo Dark in 2023, and it is Turbo because of this card. Galarian Weezing is a 130 hit point body, very nice. So, Energy Factory. Each basic dark energy attached to all of your Pokemon that have Weezing in their name count as 2 dark energy. You can't have more than one of these factory abilities. Basically, Weezing, Galarian Weezing both count. And our engine, how are we going to put them onto our Pokemon? So we've got Radiant Greninja to discard them. We have Trekking Shoes to dig through our deck. If it's an energy off the shoes, 9 times out of 10 we're tossing it to the bin and taking the other card, which is very nice. And then we're going to keep the strategy going. So we've got Dark Patches, which let us put a dark energy from our discard pile onto one of our dark Pokemon. And we've got Galarian Moltres. So attachment, Dark Patches, Moltres, very easy to get energy onto the board, which is nice. And then, of course, we are leaning in with our attackers. So Darkrai is not always going to be on the board, but Weezing comes in from time to time. With Galarian Weezing, our energy are very efficient. We can see 3-4 attachments turn 1. We could have 6 energy on the board turn 2. It's very nice. Alright, so what does the opening turns look like? I did this in the previous video. Shoutouts to the Single Strike Urshifu video. Feel free to check that out. I'll drop that in the comments below. Fun deck. So going first, going second, this is where your initial board state wants to start. We want a copy of our attacker, copy of our backup attacker. We are getting both copies of Koffing. If your opponent decides that one of those Koffings have to go and they figure out that, hey, we're playing the Weezing variant of this, they're going to gun down the Koffing and make your deck a little less efficient. So if we put the 2 of them down, then we're all right. Get a little more setup going, we have Radiant Greninja. It's not essential, it's a basic. We can discard it if we have to. We don't have to slap it down right away, but again, that's extra. Galarian Moltres V. This one you could play first turn if you feel it's safe. Opt to play it turn 2 when you're going to be a little more aggressive. Maybe you want to save your attachments elsewhere. This is what the opening board state looks like in an ideal turn. And then we're going to try to evolve everybody up. So we've got our Galarian Weezing. I threw in the 1 prizer. Again, if you feel like it's safe to do so, evolve to this one. If you're worried about them gunning down the Energy Factory, evolve to the second one. And the last thing I wanted to mention, Galarian Moltres is a liability on your bench. 222 prizes is not very big, and your opponent will circle that down. Any support Pokemon that are worth multiple prizes and gun them down before Darkrai, so keep that in mind. Moltres comes with a risk. High risk, high reward. So, some people are telling me that there's other ways to play it. Weezing's not the way, this is just whatever. Well, I decided to go by the number. Put Weezing into play, our numbers get very, very efficient. So, 3 energy is 150, because again, every energy on a Weezing counts as 2 energy, which is nice. So 4 energy, typically how you want to go is you want to set up 1 Darkrai at least in the early stages. You slap your 3rd energy on the Weezing. Then your 4th energy typically goes to a Darkrai, and your 5th energy would go to either a Darkrai or a Weezing, depending on how your board is developing. You always want to have a Darkrai in the active, a Darkrai set up in case you need to retaliate, and any surplus of energy going to the Weezing. So 7 energy gets you up to 330 by putting 3 energy on Weezings. So it could be spread out on 2 Weezings or all on 1 Weezings. Here are the numbers without. So if, as you notice, there will be other variants I'm going to talk about, but if you don't play Weezing, you have to put more energy on the board. This isn't an Underworld Door deck. We don't have an ability that's going to accelerate energy and draw cards. We have to be very particular with our attachments. We have to be thinking ahead to our next attacker. We understand that 270 is not the bulkiest of numbers, and we have to be keeping our targets ready to go. We want to streamline attackers and keep things going. Putting energy on Weezing helps us ramp higher though, so when you have to go all in, sometimes you'll put 3 or 4 energy on 1 or 2 Weezings. Do not put all of your energy on 1 Weezing. Try to establish a second one, because unless you're going for game or you're going for a sizable lead, once they take that out, you're in trouble. So 10 energy for 330 without, 7 energy for 330 with. I think those are very nice. Now let's address the other build. So, Revavroom. Not a fan. So the other build I've been seeing is swap out your Weezings for Revavroom. You may discard an energy card from your hand in order to use this ability. You can draw 6. So it's Radiant Greninja on steroids. My argument is for Radiant Greninja and Trekking Shoes based on the current metagame, because more damage plus more consistency. Our draw engine is based on a one prize, basic Pokemon, and item card. Those can be played the first turn of the game. They are not relying on the second turn of the game. Revavroom does not take effect until the second turn, and it just kind of mimics it. Plus, you know, if they gun down your Revavroom or it gets stranded in the active, you have to pay energy to retreat it. Whereas, plus if somebody plays Collapse Stadium or Avery or anything like that, we don't mind discarding the Radiant Greninja. We can always get it back. So, you can tell me what you want, what you think of Revavroom. I am telling you that Radiant Greninja is the way. It is the way. So here's the list. Here's what I'm thinking. So we got our 3-3 of our main attacker, 3-3 of the Weezing line, 1 Moltres because it's overkill having 2. Lumineon, Greninja make up our support line. Again, they can be immediately discarded with Collapse Stadium. You do want about 3 Stadium bumps. 4 if you feel like you're going to see a lot of path. Standard 4 Dark Patch, 4 Ultra Ball. I went with 3 Nest Ball because in the second and third turns there's diminishing returns, whereas Hisuian Heavy Ball is our 4th card. Can fish out a Lumineon, can fish out a Koffing, can fish out Greninja if they get stuck in the prizes, because there will be games where they do, or where multiple of them will. 3 Trekking Shoes, again, I opted to cut that for the Echoing Horn. The Echoing Horn is the 60th card in the list. That one is a flex spot again. I'm going for raw damage and beat down the same thing. And then 4 research for aggressive dig. 2 Boss, 2 Klara, 2 Roxanne, 2 Serena. Serena double purposes, Klara's for recovery. I like the next set to improve this list a little more. So I wanted to talk about tech cards. Everybody likes to talk about how they would do it differently. Well, if you want to tinker my list, I'm going to at least put you in the right direction on where to start, where to mess with. How do you better fit your own play style or your own metagame? So you can cut a Darkrai V and V-Star and opt for an additional Koffing and an additional attacking Weezing. That could allow you to play more into the one prize element of the deck. It does hit lower, but again, you know, you probably would prize trade better going into things. Just going to experiment with that more. Galarian Moltres. So I've seen it in some lists. My problem is when you're at 5 prizes, it only hits 270. So it doesn't hit that magic 280 number, and you have to commit to 2 of them because I find 1 just is not enough. It does let you accelerate 2 energy onto the board, but typically we're not attacking until turn 2 anyway, so we can usually get around that with the Weezing anyway. I find in other builds, like the Revavroom build, Moltres might be better, but again, I think the Weezing build is better, and these just kind of felt out of place. A second copy of Galarian Moltres V. High risk, high reward. If you're a big fan of this card, or you want to have the chance to attack on turn 1 going second, I understand putting in the second copy here. Moltres. Or Weird Ear. So 30 damage multiplier is not enough, 20 damage is not enough. Weird Ear says you can move this from the bench to the active and grab as many energy from your board and put it on this. If you need a home run swing to take your last 2 prizes, last 3 prizes, the game's going a little slow, by all means. Next up, EXP share. Are you afraid of energy leaving your board? You shouldn't be with this deck because it's such a low requirement to keep your numbers high. EXP share is a good card to include. It's a tool card now. Picnic Basket. So this one I've been experimenting with. Heal 30 damage from each Pokemon in play. Considering this for Lost Box, skewing numbers with Cramorant. You can also play it once, recover it with Darkrai, depending on how your game state is going. Healing 60 doesn't take you out of 1-hit KO range, but it does make the Lost Box matchup have to work a little harder, so I totally get that. I'm not entirely sold. Echoing Horn just lets me be more aggressive at the moment, but it's there. Trekking Shoes. I even mentioned that I cut it, the 4th one for the Echoing Horn. If you want to put it back and go a little faster, by all means. But after I hit about 2 of them, I had most of the cards I wanted. I was thinning most of what I wanted, and with the Radiant Greninja, I was kind of getting there. So, Lost City. Are you tired of that damn Lost Box? You think Radiant Charizard is going to be a problem? Radiant Greninja. Just put them in the Lost Zone. You might help their number, but at the same time, you'll never see that attacker again. Pokestop. Do you just want to throw everything away in your deck because you'll never hit an item off this card? By all means, look at the top 3 cards of your deck. Keep the items, toss the rest. Next set, when we can switch this deck to a more item-heavy deck, I do think this will be a good card. Right now, not sold on it. Supporters, if you weren't a fan of double Roxanne or you thought 2 Klara was a little expensive, Thornton allows you to pivot, whether you need to take a Lumineon or a Moltres off the board into a Koffing and then turn it into something else, or turn an extra Darkrai into a Moltres or your Weird Ear, you know what I mean? Something out of nowhere. Or turn, you know, if you went to the baby Moltres. Thornton allows you to just kind of pivot around, which is nice. I thought it was worth including. And Avery. Boards want to go wide. Avery is a nice way to do it. You punish them, take off their board, and just kind of Echoing Horn something small for next turn, or hold your Echoing Horn and go around it. And with that said, let's jump into some gameplay.